Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's so good to have you here. I want to introduce myself. My name is Jamie Kelly, and I'm the Director of Certificate and Non-Degree Programs at the College of Liberal and Professional Studies. And in this quick 30-minute session, you are going to learn more about our creative writing classes and our certificate in creative writing. Um, in terms of how to participate in the session, we are going to host a Q&A at the end. So you'll be using the chat function, which is in the center bottom of your screen. But please hold your questions until the end, but this will be an interactive session nonetheless. And I just want to welcome you and introduce our speaker today, Dr. Julia Bloch, who will be presenting a mini lesson in creative discovery. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie, and welcome to everybody. So I'm Julia Bloch. I teach here at Penn and I direct the online program in creative writing. That's part of the BAS program. And I'm excited to talk to you today about creative discovery. So the slide that we're looking at right now is an image by the poet Alice Notley. It's actually a poem that consists of one single line: "You cannot discourage your wingspan." So Alice took that line and turned it into a painting that's available in her online archives at UC San Diego. And I'm thinking about this image today because humans throughout history, including, of course, writers who work with creative and figurative and descriptive language, have used flight and sea travel as ways to expand our knowledge of ourselves and our world. So today's mini lesson will be focused on the concept of creative discovery. And that phrase comes out of the notion that creative writing is actually a knowledge producing discipline. It creates new ways of understanding ourselves and our world. So writing is, yes, it's different from working in a biology lab or a geological dig, but it does have methods of discovery that can be compared to the scientific disciplines, especially if you think about shaping your powers of observation and forming new connections between things and ideas. So rather than take more time right now to describe this concept, I want to give you a chance to work with it first. So this is going to be an inductive lesson where you do the discovering, and then we check in together about what happened as we did this work together. So today's mini lesson is organized around three questions. What happens when we write through questions? What becomes possible? And what do we discover? So I'm inviting you to write together in this online session in response to a number of prompts. So you'll need a notebook and something to write with, or to open a new window on your device, your laptop or your mobile device. I'll talk for another few moments to give you a chance to grab something to write with. You're welcome to write with anything, but if writing by hand is something that's available to you, I do recommend it. It can really unlock something that's not always possible when we write on a keyboard. I also want to say that the prompts I'm going to be using are something that I borrowed from the poet Patrick Rosal, who's visited Penn several times over the years to read and also work closely with our students. He's a fabulous poet based here in the region. And I'll say one more thing, which is there's one condition to doing this writing together, which is I ask you to keep writing until I let you know it's time to stop. I want you to try to write a little bit past what you think you know, a little bit past what you think you have to say. So do your best not to let your pen leave the page or your fingers leave the keyboard. If you get stuck, you can just write, "I can't think of anything else to say," over and over again, and I promise something will eventually shift for you. Okay, so with that, I hope that you've had a chance to get your hands on a piece of paper, something to write with, or a new browser window or notes app or whatever environment that you like to write in. I invite you to get comfortable. Now, I'm going to give you a series of writing prompts, and I'll ask you to write for just a minute or so in response to each prompt. The first is I want to ask you to take a minute or two to bring yourself into this space using a private free write. So a private free write is just exactly what it sounds like. You just put your pen to paper and start writing whatever comes to mind. Do your best not to let your pen leave the page or your fingers leave the keyboard, but just keep writing. If you want a suggestion on where to start, go ahead and describe anything that you were doing until you came to this session today. And I'll start the timer now, and I'll let you know when it's time to stop. And I'm going to be writing also. So go ahead and start your private free write. Go ahead and keep writing for about 30 more seconds. And again, I invite you to write past a little bit what you think you have to say. And go ahead and bring this piece of writing to a pause. So now I'm going to move into these writing prompts from Patrick Rosal. Here's your first prompt. What is the sky? What is the sky? And just write anything that comes to mind in response to that prompt. And we'll keep writing for about 25 more seconds. Bring that piece of writing to a pause. And here is your next prompt. What will you keep? What will you keep? Keep writing for about 30 more seconds. And go ahead and bring that piece of writing to a pause. And then start writing in response to this next prompt, which is, what will you give away? What will you give away? And I'll ask you to bring this piece of writing to a pause. And we have three more prompts coming up just to give you a sense of where we're headed. Here's your next prompt. So I'm asking you to write in response to this next prompt. How did they live? How did they live? We'll take about 20 more seconds. And here's your next to last prompt. What have you done with your hands? What have you done with your hands? take a few moments to bring this piece to a pause before writing in response to this last prompt. What was making a sound? What was making a sound? And take a couple moments to bring that piece to a pause. And that was the last prompt, but I have one more piece of writing for you. I would like to invite you to write for just one more minute in response to this question. What did you notice when you wrote through the questions? What did you notice when you wrote through the questions? Take a few minutes, a few moments to wrap that piece up, or at least bring it to a pause. And then I would like to invite you to share some of what you've written. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself, or you can put something in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and put our questions in the chat. I did not put them up on the slide because I wanted to see what would happen if I did not put them in writing in the session, but instead made them, part of my voice. So here are questions in the chat. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you. What happened in that last prompt? What did you notice when you wrote through the questions? What did you discover? You might choose one single word or one single phrase from what you've written, or you might want to share your thoughts, your thinking on what you discovered and what happened.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you,
go ahead.
Heather.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, great. Go ahead, Chris. You share what you want to share, and then I'll lift up what's in the chat.
Copy that. Yeah, I'll make it quick, but I noticed I was kind of stuck in applying all the prompts to myself, whereas I
Yeah.
think I wanted to it feels a little less creative than I would hope, something that would come out of my head. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like you mean like your instinct was to write literally in response to yourself rather than go somewhere else?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of really great stuff happening in the chat. Heather says it helped bring new ideas by mentally trying on the prompt and blending it in my narrative. Michelina says calmed me down, had me direct my focus. AR, one has to think. Um, Looks like Tim shared you shared your response to that hands prompt. What have you done with your hands? They have learned a lot, Phil, and tried again over and over. Hannah felt easier than the morning pages. Yeah, I know that morning pages prompt. And I've heard that before. The morning pages is like they're very open, right? It's a very open-ended prompt. So these are maybe more focused, more specific, more trying to pin you to something more precise. Megan, you have this great comment. I tended to start with a familiar image, but by the end of the writing, it had become something else entirely. Yeah, I think that's the beauty of having that like swerve between questions. If you notice, the questions don't necessarily make an obvious kind of sense together. We could maybe figure out why they belong in the same writing lesson or mini lesson, but they're also like making swerves around and away from each other. Shannon wrote discomfort. This is not a muscle I use often. Yes, I encourage you to lean into that discomfort and notice what happens when you keep flexing that new muscle. Um, Peace and quietness. Um, and Roy, I started with philosophical musing, which led to more fictional writing. So you started to write in different genres and even maybe across genres. I think that's one of the things questions can do too, is they can invite us to write across different spaces. In a second, I'll start talking about the specific courses that we offer, which of course will give you very concrete tools in writing in specific genres. But I also encourage you to consider the ways in which our offerings are, giving you the tools to write across a lot of different kinds of forms. And it's really that habit of writing and that habit of tapping into creativity that can serve you, whether you think of yourself as primarily a poet or a fiction writer or a screenwriter or some other kind of writer. Um, So I'm noticing the time. It's already time for us to start moving into some description of our courses. And I want to have time for Q&A and questions you might have about the courses, but you're also welcome to double back and ask questions about those prompts or share what happened for you. So classes. This slide, you'll see a list of the creative writing offerings that are currently on tap across the certificate. As I said a second ago, we offer courses in lots of different specific genres, but you can, in every course, expect some version of what we just did, which is the opportunity to write in an open-ended way, in an associative way, and to let your own habits of discovery get cultivated and also discover new directions and new ways of flowing through producing your own original creative writing. Our courses are collaborative, they're hands-on, they are opportunities to interact with an instructor like myself, but also with each other as peers and really to really learn from each other as peers and do really exciting forms of hands-on workshopping of work, learn from each other. We have students coming from all different kinds of backgrounds and levels of preparedness to do creative writing. Some folks are quite experienced, some people are coming to the craft quite new, and we can all learn from each other in that space because the tools are so accessible. I'm talking about these courses, but I'm distracted by all these really wonderful comments that are still coming up in the chat. The sound, the music came from somewhere deep inside the mind, possibly the soul screaming in its physical lockbox. That's beautiful writing. So yeah, I want to reiterate that these courses are suitable for new writers and also writers with some level of experience. We've had lots of students find their way into our classes, even if they think they're interested primarily in other kinds of topics and subjects. And what they've found is that the tools that you find in our courses are also tools and skills that are quite transferable to other fields of study and other ways of discovering knowledge and practicing things like research skills and communication across a lot of different kinds of subject areas. So I will pause there and hand it back over to Jamie and Christina, but I'm also going to stay here, obviously, to help answer questions.
Thank you so much. I want to spend as little amount of time as possible to go over some of the more administrative things, but these are important, particularly for individuals that are considering the certificate in creative writing or our bachelor's in applied arts and sciences. I'm not going to go into detail about all the student support that is available to people in our programs, but I am going to show it on the screen. I'm just going to spend a minute to talk about how to apply. So if you are a prospective student that are interested in these programs, high level view, the classes are 8 weeks, so they are compressed and intensive courses. We are currently accepting students for summer admission, fall one and fall two. We require a high school diploma or GED to apply. And there's basically two ways to enroll. One is for the certificate in creative writing, which is a 4-course certificate, and you would choose from the classes that were available in the previous slide. And this program is fully online. Alternatively, if you are interested in obtaining your bachelor's degree, we offer a Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences, also fully online, and the first online Ivy League bachelor's degree. So we're very proud of that. And this is a 30-course degree, and you can transfer in up to 15 courses that you've taken previously. In terms of cost of attendance, each course is $2,612, and we have an online service fee of $162. And each course is a course unit, which is equivalent to 4 credit hours. Hopefully, I went through that quickly enough. Here's our phone number and email address. If you have questions that are more individual and you want to reach out to us, we'd love to connect with you. And I'd love to give our remaining moments, and maybe we'll go a tiny bit over with questions that you have. I'm going to hand it over to Christina.